Hey everybody, Will Fix here with Maximus Crypto. We're doing another collab. We're going to be doing a lot of those. We've had a lot of positive feedback from that. And we're aiming to have a video that has 1,000 likes. If you want to be a part of that effort, we'd love to see that. We're trying to grow our channels. We love to get the information out there that we have. Today, we're going to be looking at some ISO 20022 standards that's being implemented or overseen by the BIS to ensure that everything's brought up to date, because at the end of this year, it's mandated that everybody's on board and has a working mechanism to be able to do and function underneath this standard. So that's what we're bringing for you today. And real quick, it supports both of our channels. We're going to have a quick message about the Decent Wallet. So we'll be right back. Owning crypto means you need a self-custody wallet. Leaving your crypto on an exchange is dangerous. Exchanges can be hacked. Exchanges can fail. Exchanges can lock up. I suggest the Decent Wallet. I've owned several wallets. This one has an abundance of features. I love that it has a biometric sensor where I just use my thumbprint to open it up. I love that it connects to an app on my phone, and my phone is a large screen. There's many features to the Decent Wallet. Use the link that appears above here or the link in the description and get you one at a discount. It does support my channel. I appreciate it if you buy one from me, but I suggest the wallet no matter who you buy it from. Uncompromising security. Embrace peace of mind through our certified secure chip and advanced fingerprint technology, ensuring your private keys safety with encryption and offline storage. Designed for one-hand use. Look at this. Fuel your portfolio. Boost your cryptocurrency strategies using our in-app investment tools, carefully designed to help you manage your portfolio effortlessly. Again, having owned at least 5 different wallets, I highly suggest this one. This is my favorite. You can pick you one up today using the link in the description or the link that's above my head. Thank you for looking at that. A lot of times those are just 30 seconds or 1 minute long ads. We appreciate that you guys watch that. And if you ever wonder why we have those ads all the time, it's because between Max and I, there's 70 to 80 people that buy those every single month. So we know that it's loved and that it's needed. So that's why we offer that. But Max, we're going to get started with that today with the ISO update. What do you have for us?
Absolutely. Glad to be collaborating with my fellow brother in Christ, Will Fix. We're going to jump into it. Major update roughly about 2 days ago. You've seen other people cover it. Shout out to Wade Teamer of DHN Crypto. He did an excellent job with his outline. And when I reviewed his entire outline, I said to myself, you know what? He is right in that regard, but I want to expand a little bit in regards to my own key findings. Obviously, I've been covering Quant and the ISOs for probably about 3 years now. So whatever the case be, let's jump into this update straight from the biz on January 7th and get into the fundamentals and the nitty gritty of why it matters for all of us who are token and coin holders of these particular ISO coins, whether it's Quant, Ripple XRP, Stellar, XDC, and so on. Let's jump into it. So you're going to see this on your screen, and it's the press release straight from the BIS. As you see here, it mentions specifically that the Bank for International Settlements, CPMI, takes further steps to promote ISO 222 payment. And it's the harmonization of that, everybody, through enhanced cross-border payments specifically. As you see, this was literally just a couple days ago. And in the specifics, I want to get into this, and Will's going to give you his key takeaway. The bottom line is medium-term governance and the maintenance of its harmonized ISO 222 data requirements. Now, if you guys are new to all this, it's understanding the terminology, and we'll get into that. But as you can see, clearly, it's understanding that the BIS doesn't want anybody to just take it easy, if you will. There's a call to action, and with that call to action, it's understanding that these particular groups, whether it's with ISO 222 market practice groups, have to be established in early 2025. We're already in early 2025, and it's to promote some of this and develop global ISO 222 market practice guidelines for just that, fast payments based on the harmonized data requirements. We'll show how Quant is part of the mix, Ripple XRP, all the big players. But if anything, Will, what did you gather from the notes of this that you wanted to point out?
Well, the first thing I see that it's being managed properly, and you hope that Earth is managed properly, right? But the Bank of International Settlements has this, the CCM, what is it? The CPMI, the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructure, that they've put together to oversee the transitions that people are migrating and using the governance and checking on the maintenance and the implementation of using this language system. So they're not just hoping it's going to happen by the end of the year. They're bringing people. They're checking in on all of these coins, on XDC, on XRP, on XLM, on all the ISO coins. They're checking in and making them, so to speak, be compliant. So I like to see that they got this being overseen. Now, one thing that I think about, an aspect of this, I'm like, well, the coins that aren't in now aren't getting these updates, are they? Because they're not in now. So it makes me wonder if the ones that are in now are just the ones that are going to be. If so, you only have a handful of coins that are going to be used for international trade by the end of this year, which means they need to be ready before the end of this year. When regulate this just brings to mind that when regulations get passed or the new chair gets in and at least gives a breath of fresh air saying, hey, we'll have none of this junk anymore. There'll probably be two phases of how the market responds. It'll be just because we get the new guy in. And then when Trump gets the regulations passed, that means these coins, they're going to want to go ahead and get started. They don't want day one in, what would it be, November, October, November, the end date being in November. They don't want to wait until November to go, okay, well, we kind of had an idea, but now everything has to function this way. So seeing this oversight for me is exciting because it also brings home the reality. This thing's changing over. And the next thing that I see that you pointed out, Max, is how involved Quant is with all of this. Unbelievable. They are actually the tool to use to make all of this work together, and they have their own standard. So that's my take on maybe a little bit deeper. We hadn't even gotten into it, but this is definitely all the G20 countries. And then you have to look at this idea too. So the report, the data requirements it says here were published in the report to the G20. That implies that if you're not in the G20, you were left out. Very interesting idea there that we could talk about. But anyway, at least we see that they are actually adopting this. If you're invested in the ISO 20022 coins, you're not going to miss out on a massive move, is what I see. What do you think?
That's the way I look at it, and that's why I use the example like, Jasmine, shout out to them. Yeah, they're a different ISO standard, but they had a mandate in regards to medical data and the My Number card, and the significance of that was where we went from roughly 3 cents and we boomed almost up to 6 cents. And it was literally in the matter of like not even a week. So that was a taste, in my opinion, of mandates, and I think that was a good example in regards to what to expect with this in regards to ISO 222. And we're going to get into the harmonization of how that happens, how it's orchestrated, and so on, which leads us to this next particular part. Because when we talk about, for example, members from the ISO 222 global market practice groups, well, they understand that you have to have market participants ready and enabled, if you will, moving forward. Where we're going with this, again, now let's enter in Quant Network. How did this all start in regards to the topic of harmonization? Let's take you over to Quant Network. And in this, as we full screen it, I want to point out some key things. This actually some of these concepts went public back in October 2022. It's creating the right ecosystem for digital currency, like it says. Gilbert Verdian put a lot of emphasis on this, and basically it's this statement right here that you see. He states basically that he believes in the future enterprises extend the whole scale of the way they use stablecoins for payments. Well, look what's going on with RLUSD. Let's go look at what's going on with Circle, especially with like Stellar and so on. But Verdian proposed that banks may want to develop commercial stablecoins that operate on public ledgers for consumer to merchant transactions through consortium banking networks. Again, think about the terminology. Those networks. What did we see in the course of the last couple of years? The regulated liability network. And if anything, Citigroup led the charge of bringing all the market participants together and doing the pilots. And those pilots were successful. We understand that Quant Network won't be the one to settle, right, for real-time gross settlements. But if anything, their subscription-based model with what they got going on with the Overledger allows not just some interoperability, but full interoperability across the board when it comes to even the ones that technically aren't purchasable, like your JP Morgan coins and your other ones like your Hyperledger Fabric and whatnot. And if anything, understanding how we can have this full scale interoperability for everybody can benefit. Well, there needs to be harmonization of that data and how we can leverage that data for all market participants can not only thrive, but for we can benefit everybody, whether it is the central banks, whether it is retail moving forward and so on. And we'll talk about a little bit that retail and those deadlines coming up here in a bit. But again, back to Gilbert Verdian, because what you're going to see here is he states, for all this to come together, for it can all happen, international standards and technical harmonization need to be agreed and implemented. ISO TC 307, the Quant network standard, blockchain ISO standard, is one such body creating international standards. INAPA, International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications, review and classifies different blockchain projects to support international harmonization. Of course, Gilbert gets more further into it. That's not the point. But the point is, how was this all chartered? How did it all happen? Well, if you go to swift.com, you will see what they reference in regards to harmonization. And like it shows right here, it's how it all started. ISO 222 Harmonization Charter, ensuring a harmonized rollout, of course, ISO 222 for the industry. As we get further into this, even when I pull up some key things from these PDFs, you see in the info paper of ISO 222 harmonization, what? You see that, again, the highlights in the charter outline, again, the market practice and the participants. And this definitely brings some attention to basically this. And that is the highlight of where it says that cooperation, I should say, of standards and those organizations have agreed to play the coordinating role, bringing FMIs together in dialogue and providing a roadmap and technology to facilitate harmonization. Again, this dates back quite a while, if
You
anything,
know,
years. Go
you
ahead.
know that harmonization, that's a multifold deal that's covered here. That one word would think that it's just narrowly pointed at maybe just the language of ISO 20022, but what Gilbert Verdian's including in there is that Quant is a bridge to the other chains. It's as if there's one giant network when you use Quant. That's another factor of the harmonization. I mean, how slick that he basically owns that standard, right? They made that particular standard for Quant, and Quant is tying all of the ISO coins together. So it's not just a language harmonization, but it's the fact that you can have any coin, work in this system by using the Quant network in order to do cross-chain payments. Do you see it that way?
Right. Well, interoperability is the bottom line. So
Yeah.
the thing is understanding that, Wade Teamer pointed this out, and I've used this example as well. It's the concept of standards. You may be new to all this when we talk about standards. Heck, like he mentioned, this camera, right? Mine does 1920 by 1080. For the broadcast, we do 720 because in reality, are you playing a video game? Do you really need to see like every single thing, all my blemishes on my face and so on? No, not really. You just want the information. So we do 720p. But again, think about that. TVs back in the day going from 480i to 720 was a big jump because that was considered HD. Well, HD, the standard for 720p, the 1920 by 1080, and then if anything, people have 4K TVs. That's the standard. Now people have 8K TVs. That's the standard. We're talking about blockchain and DLT standards moving forward. And believe it or not, ISO TC307, the Quant network standard, is the foundation for building on blockchain. And that was implemented, if I'm not mistaken, all the way back to 2017. Even the Reserve Bank of Australia is behind it, Bank of England, Bank for International Settlements, on and on. But we're going to get a little bit more into this about the significance of this because we don't want to draw it out too long in that regard, and just give you some of the key highlights. So there is this outline, and again, I think it's very well worth pointing out some key things. So as I got more into this, I said to myself, harmonization, interesting to see some of the terms, right? So they have the whole thing about the proposal of the driving force of harmonization for this SWIFT charter of SWIFT standards harmonization. And it leads us to this. This is from SWIFT ISO 222 FinTech discussion paper. What do you see literally on page 3 of 8? You see that they understand that they not only are going to use the Universal Financial Industry Message Scheme developed in regards to ISO 222, but they reference front row center this ISO Technical Committee 307. That's the Quant network standard. So that, in my opinion, confirms the SWIFT connection. And we've outlined this before, but again, some of you guys that are new aren't aware of this. There's a little bit more about this. If you go over to the SWIFT info paper, Business Standards and Emerging Technologies, they reference a little bit more about this. And you see kind of like how it's all orchestrated. If you choose to do so, I would highly recommend, if you're a nerd and want to nerd it out, they talk about the need and want of this value chain. Back to what Will is talking about. What's this area here? Value chains are getting longer with new players intermediating between banks, customers, banks, and other banks. Market infrastructures. And look what it says. This definitely needs the whole thing of API DLT. Well, Quant really shines in that in regards to the overledger. But look at this. SWIFT explored financial standards for new technologies on multiple fronts. Talked about this in this paper. To extend ISO 222, SWIFT standards team also contributes to foundational work, architecture, and look what it says. Once again, boil it, mash it, stick it in steel will, ISO TC307, the Quant network standards. So I want to jump into this next part because I know we talked about a lot about Quant. I want you guys to understand that big players such as Ripple XRP are part of the mix. This is from dps.de. It talks about Ripple's involvement in ISO 222, the step towards wider acceptance, of course, in the banking industry. What do you see here in that regard? Well, again, look what it says. All the way back in May of 2020, Ripple announced that it has become part of the ISO 222 standards body, a multi-part international standard, set to replace SWIFT's current MT messages. This part is so crucial. Why? Well, basically speaking, it's understanding that the coexistence period for ISO 222 and SWIFT MT messaging will officially end with the mandate this coming November of 2025. If that doesn't drive demand for these coins and tokens that are compliant with ISO 222, I don't know what does. But I also think that Quant does not get talked enough with their standard of ISO TC 307. So before we continue, just a little bit more of your own key takeaway, even with this, because I know you cover Ripple a lot, right? Better than anybody. And you see it. It's already been outlined, and they understand that there's a want and need about the comparison of what Ripple will provide compared to Swift. Some people even state that Swift won't be around. I don't know if I agree with that. I look at that Swift is not that, it's not that they're going to be replaced. They have no choice but to upgrade to this, or they won't be around, right?
Right.
So that's the, yeah.
And when I look at this, you can't the more that we study any of these kinds of things, the more you can't talk about ISO without talking about Quant. It's pretty amazing that one coin is going to play, or one, whatever you want to call it, one token is going to play such a massive part in world finance. And when you understand they only have what 14.88 million, 14 less than 15 million coins, 15 million, that's it. And so you understand the price is, what, $115, $120 somewhere in there right now. I mean, it's got to be mentioned, right? You can't divorce Quant from that. So if anybody doesn't know about QNT, look into it, man. It is definitely a major part of everything that's going on. But that's the thing that bears out to me. I just keep getting this revelation of how brilliant this man is that created Quant. What's his name? Gilbert Verdian?
Yeah, Gilbert Verdian. And I want to just point this out to you guys. I know that, Will's got a good analogy in that regard to explain this. But some of you guys are new, you kind of wonder, yeah, I see where Ripple's stance is here. But again, back to the whole thing of Quant. Because even when we reference the whole thing of Ripple, look what it says here. Talk about this whole thing of the Ripple value propositions for RippleNet and ISO 222 membership. Look what it says here. Help define future direction for cross-border payments. Access a network of global financial institutions, okay, governed by rules and functional standards. Again, back to what the BIS is basically, put out earlier in their press release. Leverage software, think about the terminology here, to enable fast, transparent, and seamless cross-border payments. And here's your other boil it, mash it, stick and stew moment. Connect to one standardized API for all counterparty connections. Think about that. Will, that's the Quant overledger. That's full interoperability, man.
Yeah.
So you can understand like the significance of the regulated liability network and what Citi did recently in regards to the regulated settlement network. Because again, it's not going to settle with Quant, but they are the toll booth on all bridges throughout the world. Imagine every single bridge of the network in the world pays a small toll for QNT for that interoperability. Now, some people say, well, isn't that just Axelar? Right, but why are we limiting? And I think that's a great project, by the way. But we're not just limiting things to just EVM sidechains and so on. When we talk about all of it, we've seen numerous examples of how Quant is at the forefront of that. Whether the examples JP Morgan recently, some of the examples with MasterCard, with MTN, and the research does back that up. So again, I want to put some emphasis on that. I want to get more further into this. Here's something new for you guys, because you guys want something a little bit more, from the last month, give or take. Look at this. I'm going to full screen this as well. Financial Revolution, How Crypto and ISO 222 Reshaping Global Payment Rails, December 6, 2024. And this is from Finney V, Unlimit Your Life, finneyv.com. Global financial system undergoing profound transformation. Again, back to the whole thing of what you saw from the call to action and the press release from BIS. Again, we see how this is all coming together. And who do they cite here? Is it just Quant? Just XRP? Nope. It's the whole financial rail. Ripple XRP. You see, for example, XDC. You see Algorand. You see Stellar. Obviously Quant. There's IOTA part of the mix. Internet of Things, man. My goodness, that really stands out. Hedera HBAR. On and on, right? And they cite Hyperledger Fabric. Quant upgraded their overledger in, I think it was March of 2022 for Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Besu, the whole suite of that. And guys, this gets even better. Here's another thing printed from europa.eu, ecb.europa.eu to be exact. On page 19 of 40 of the Target 2, T2 My Standards, I understand, some people feel as though that Target 2, it's not quite what it used to be. And if anything, they're kind of phased out. But look what they even cited in the past. They cite the whole thing of the impact for the allowance of the next version of the base ISO 222 message. How can that be done? Harmonization. Again, back to what we shared earlier. So you see these examples, and like it says right here, rules in ISO 222 messages. Talks about previous instructing agent. Okay, so when we talk about an orchestrator to harmonize that, we've always thought that Quant Network allows for that harmonization. All right, there's a little bit more about this as we take it to this next part. Here's the key highlight of the thumbnail. We should have mentioned at the beginning of the outline. Apologize. Did the Asian bond market select all this? Did they select Quant Network? Did they select, for example, Ripple XRP and all these particular things that are part of the big mix? This started back in 2018. For me, the answer is yes. Check this out for a second. What do we see? Working groups that were created years ago. ISO TC 307, Study Group 1 through 5, use cases, security and privacy, identity, smart contracts. Look at this, it gets better. Let's get further down into this. Liaisons. Look at this. Programming, software interfaces, IT, biometrics, like, connected to Internet of Things, financial services, healthcare, heck, Laura Verdian, the wife of Gilbert Verdian, chain of custody, governance. Go further down into it. Study groups created, the architecture, security and privacy, again, identity, smart contracts. I mean, for me, it's basically all there. You see the liaisons once again. And the icing on the cake, let me just bring this up to you guys, is what we see in regards to ISO 222. They met long ago, because I know you guys just saw the whole thing of Quant Network with ISO TC 307. Look what it says. In regards to the Asian bond market, importance of ISO 222 is interoperability, of course, with those processes by Swift. And Swift is ending coexistence period and just going with ISO 222. That creates everybody's supply and demand forces for what we have. Any way you want to look at it, because it's adoption international standards, in particular ISO 222, and this part of adoption, again, like we said earlier, and this last part, let me pull it up. The importance of ISO 222 and its interoperability with fintech, securities, and payment business processes. So at the end of the day, here's the presented material in its entirety, give you a full outline of how this all flowed. Call it research orchestration from the one and only Will Fix and myself. Proud to bring it to you guys. And Will, I just want your final thoughts in that regard with everything that has been presented to our audience today.
Oh man, I'm blown away that just to see they're overseeing it, that they're bringing everybody up to date, checking on them, making sure they're ready to go. It just kind of really sends home the message. This is changing over this year. And then my next big takeaway is how involved Quant is, even with its own standard to be able to oversee all of these different coins and to offer that interoperability for the whole thing, harmonizing all of this and it being overseen. It just really kind of makes me realize, man, I'm so glad I'm in so many ISO coins. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, I'm really glad about that as well. The one I think I'm gonna try to DC a little bit more into is IOTA. I think they're a real sleeper. For me, they didn't really stand out. Obviously last year, Jasmine really stood out in that regard for IoT, but now we see the shift with this. I'm still, of course, very bullish on Jasmine, but it's like the shift is going to be America, of course, with IoT. If there was supply and demand for that, for things like Jasmine, IOTA is part of that mix for IoT and ISO 222. To me, that has to be really slept on, and that's a very limited supply. I think it's under 4 billion of the particular coins. That's just for me, not financial advice, but of course, I'm continuing to DCA more into these particular projects that are ISO related. People call these the Dino coins. How about this? It's the trust layer, and it's also the Internet of Value. Say what you want. BTC already had that trust. This has trust plus interoperability plus the whole thing of that value, and they have the partnerships, you name it. So that's where it's at for me, guys. If you enjoy the content, all we kindly ask you to do, it's free. Smash the like if you haven't done so. Make sure you subscribe to myself and our brother Will Fix, and also people that are in our community or where you mention or give honorable mention. A lot of you guys follow DHN Crypto, Wade Teamer. You probably already follow him. Follow other people that are part of our community. Fiber Fan, Rue Black, Underdog of the Underdog Research community. Shout out to brother Crypto Future 99, you name it. So we're really glad to bring you guys this. Simply do us a favor, you listen to the entire outline and type this keyword into the comments, and that is interoperability. And we'll know that you listen to the entire outline. We really appreciate you guys listening to the outline. As the saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. On behalf of myself and Will Fix, we'll see you on the next one.